So look, to me, like, look, I want to propose this as rules for the internet.
I want to hear it. Go for it.
But it's like,
Thank you so much.
It's so important that both the right wing and left wing agree with this, right? So let me bounce it off you guys. Number one rule: when we disagree, we fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's rule two?
Rule number two of the internet. Afterwards, you must have a beer.
I'll tell you a quick story. A guy tells me, he goes, "So you voted for Biden?" I was like, "Yeah, I actually did." "And you voted for Hillary?" "Yeah, I did." "So you're gonna vote for Kamala?" I go, No, I'm on the Trump train." He goes, "Straight up?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, so you're not gay?" I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? He goes, "Because the Democrats, they're just gays. They're just a gay party now. As a straight man, how do you vote for them?" And I looked at him and I go, "You're actually absolutely right. So you're a straight guy."
Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, who was just on PBD this morning. He provided some valuetainment for the masses.
Valuetainment for us, for sure. Pretty much self-humiliation fetish for him, I believe. You know, it's crazy. We used to kind of hold out hope that Cenk would right his wrongs. You know, okay, maybe you didn't run your business very well, but your heart may turn out to be in the right place. You may eke this one out on the right side of history. We gave him the benefit of the doubt every single chance we could, and I think it's pretty much over. I think this is the end of Cenk Uygur. I think this is when he's officially decided, in order to salvage my relationship with my co-host and executive producer, longtime partner at the Young Turks, who's clearly at best gone NIMBY liberal, kind of, I am afraid of homeless people and crime. The left doesn't care about these things, so I'm going to personally pivot all of my politics. And he's like, that's what my co-host is doing. That's where all the money is. We're bleeding cash. We're desperate for money, for operating capital, right? We're clearly envious of other streamers with lower operating costs doing better numbers than us. And he's gone to grovel and, kiss the boot again, this time hitting an all-time low, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this PBD appearance is super, super boring, honestly. That's the main thing I have to say about Cenk's latest arc, his transition, his pivot. He wants to butter us all up and put all this wrapping paper on what he's doing, talking a lot more about populism than ever before. But ironically, Zach, and I want you guys in chat to think about this too while we react to some of these clips, I actually think Cenk sounds less populist now than ever. Less populist than when he proudly identified as a progressive. Now he's leaning into the label, but he sounds more like a milquetoast kind of corporate centrist than ever before. And it's really embarrassing and pathetic. And again, it's making it even harder to swallow this pill of what's happening, because it's not even really that entertaining. And it's ultimately just kind of embarrassing.
For the entire history of our show, guys, one of the things that we've really died on is the fact that people misunderstand the word populism in this country. We both grew up in Kansas, right? Kind of the shittiest 18 years of my life, 17 years of my life that I'm kidding. It's not the worst state in the union, but it's pretty darn close. One thing that we could hold out on was the farmer party, right? The farmer populists, and the fact that it had a rich farmer populist history that kind of started in Kansas and Omaha. You guys have probably read about William Jennings Bryan. And during the time that Gavin and I were coming of age in politics, kind of developing our own serious thoughts on American policy, populism was getting the worst name possible, right? And we were like, no, guys, it actually can be the values of the American people, of the worker, the least of us determining the policies for every, right? Like rising tide lifting all boats. This can be how we protect our communities, all that stuff. It doesn't have to be a hateful, bigoted, movement of, just mob mentality. Mob rule is kind of how people often misrepresent it. What I think Cenk here is he's taking it in a completely opposite direction. He's not quite misrepresenting it in the way that MSNBC would or CNN would, where they would fearmonger about Trump's base. What he's actually doing is he's bastardizing the term by making it seem like to be a populist is to mean that you're not going to fight for anything. To be a populist is to mean you're only going to fence it. You're going to be above the fray. You're going to tell people things that they already know. You want to wage battles that have already been fought and won and that nobody disagrees upon, right? You want to basically be the guy that sits on a high horse and admonishes the rest of us for not figuring it out and being like, oh, I'm a wealthy businessman. Why doesn't everybody just decide to live and function like I do, right? It's crazy. So it's this above the fray kind of like radical centrist streak that's coming over everyone. everyone, and he's redefining populism in that way. And I think it's really gross and also just incorrect.
Yep, 100%. Well, with that said, Zach, do you want to take a look at some footage from this PBD clip?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's fire it up. I was watching this morning as I was getting ready for the day.
Okay, let's get this fired up, guys. And we're gonna speed forward into the conversation. Like I said, pretty boring stuff for the most part. It just seems like Cenk's kind of lethargic, doesn't really have much fight in him anymore. Much like Bill Maher and Joe and Mika, all these kind of bougie corporate liberal commentators. He just doesn't have it in him to fight Trump anymore. Doesn't have it in him to fight MAGA with any real teeth these days. So, you know, if you can't beat him, guess you join him. What else are you going to do?
Oh, yeah. And if you look at the first interaction they have, right, really quickly, if we just jump back for 1 second, I just want you guys to see the tone that Cenk immediately sets. He goes in there like a kid on the first day of school. And really quickly, I just wanted to play this from Jump right here. After they're done, you know, selling their PBD merch, Cenk gets in here and he immediately abandons every single former political belief he once held.
Also, what kind of lame-ass phrase is "the future looks bright"? That's how PBD brands all of their merch and stuff. I'm like, what do you, the future looks bright? Okay. I mean, I guess I like the optimism, but just such a weird kind of corporate cliche saying.
Yeah.
Means nothing.
And give gifts away to some people for Christmas. That's around the
Wow,
corner.
he's got a heart of gold.
Place your order before it sells out, because once this batch sells out, the next batch we cannot deliver to probably end of January. Having said that, go to btmerch.com, place your order. So let's get right into it. Cenk, are you now a Republican? Okay, so a lot of people on the left have that theory. The definitive answer is no. So look, I've been a populist all along, and what's fascinating to me is how much politics in America has changed. Because the left-wing populists, like the Bernie Sanders type of guys, have been standing a post waiting for our right flank to appear at some point. Because giant things like getting money out of politics, you cannot do alone. The left wing can't do it alone. The right wing can't do it alone. If you want, the only way to fix it is an amendment, because you got to go above the Supreme Court. You need 3/4 of the.
And I like how he starts off this conversation by talking about how the most important thing to Cenk Uygur is getting money out of politics. And he makes a big point about talking about, oh, you got to do this. It's a big deal. Well, when Cenk himself was running for president of the United States, he did not follow in the footprints of other Democratic primary contenders like Bernie Sanders, who walked the walk while talking the talk, who did have a grassroots movement get behind them, explode behind him, and catapult Bernie Sanders into mainstream dialogue, move all of his ideas into the primary fold of the Democratic Party. Really, if we look at 2020, the entire Democratic Party was a response to Bernie's success, right? They had to admonish it. They had to, band together to elevate Joe Biden, a bag of bones, a rotting cripple. Okay, you guys, it was, that's what they were reduced to. And instead of following that tradition, he goes on Crystal Kyle and Friends and he says, oh, yeah, well, it's really complicated. I'm not going to sequester myself off into the side and, beat myself over the head and defeat myself by not taking super PAC corporate money. I have a super PAC. I use it to pay people like Brianna Wu. We reacted to it at the time.
And you're 100% right about the reaction from Tim Pool, not only during the live show in the chat, but also in the comments on the VOD. People like to gaslight us to this day about what Cenk is doing, but it seems that the fine denizens of the Patrick Bet David Valuetainment comment section have figured it out too. This is Cenk trying to save his own ass, period. And that's true, guys. This is more about self-preservation than you realize.
100%.
How many TYT hosts, Zach, current and former, are on the record at this point condemning Cenk and Anna and straight up calling out their grift? Yeah, 100%. But either way, guys, like I said, pretty much everyone that either used to work at TYT and even a lot of people that currently work at TYT have identified what Cenk and Anna are doing. So this is 100% about self-preservation for Cenk and Anna at this point, because their attempt to pander to MAGA has backfired so spectacularly. They've lost almost everyone on the left that once respected them, and now they have no choice but to grovel and pander to people on the right, which is, a grave they dug for themselves. This from Dave Rubin. Hey, Anna Kasparian, glad to see you're rethinking some things. For the record, I can explain my classically liberal beliefs quite well. I wrote 2 books about them, and I never lied about TYT. Some people lied to you, but that's not what's important. Want to break the internet?
Oh man, Dave Rubin welcoming her back with open arms. It's the perfect circle, guys. I mean, I'm serious. You guys don't understand. I want to give a couple of flowers out to ourselves for one. Obviously, we were amongst the original haters on the Young Turks. We were amongst the originals to sniff this out. I also got to give flowers to our good friend of the show, our dear friend Olayemi Olorin, who pretty much was the first person with huge clout I saw that on the left, on the R team, to be like, Anna Kasparian, you're a huge fraud. Went into the deep end with Cenk herself. And ever since then, we've seen the crime hysteria take over. They've decided to go mask off. They can't argue their points. And now, where have they ended up? Back at the bottom with guys like Dave Rubin. I don't think we're far. If you know what, that's a lie. If Jimmy wasn't so petty, I think there might be a resolution around the corner for Cenk and Jimmy, but I don't think so because of just how alarmingly and hysterically petty Jimmy is. I think if Cenk thought it would be good for business, he would swallow his pride and do anything. I think Jimmy would be like, fuck you, I'm fine without you, I don't need you.
Also, Jimmy Dore's just like mentally ill, and I doubt anyone really wants to hang out with him or associate with him professionally or otherwise. So I doubt that one happens, but it would if he wasn't. Sure. I agree. Real quick, before we get back into this video on PBD, let's quickly look at some more of these comments, because as I said, guys, it's not just us on the left that see Cenk for who he is and see exactly what he's doing. It's actually also people on the right. So I don't want to hear this bullshit from you guys that, oh, you guys don't know how to communicate with right wingers. Cenk actually has it down. Cenk is way better at communicating with MAGA than you guys are. You guys come off like woke, liberals, or I don't even know what people say, but they act like Cenk is some soothsayer and he can, uniquely speak to right-wing America in a way that people like us cannot, which is ridiculous. We live in Kansas City. We do it every day. Cenk lives in Los Angeles and talks to a bunch of rich people constantly.
He lives in a gated community.
Yeah, exactly. A literal gated community. So anyway, here's some more comments from, again, right-wingers and the PBD audience. Cenk wins Gaslighter of the Year award when he says they said / did this. He actually means I said / did that thing. Dude gives such grifter vibes. He's not a unifier. He's seen that the tides have turned and he's trying to stay relevant. Thank you. Cenk is like Benedict Arnold.
I love right wingers. They'll bring up Benedict Arnold, right? That's something that you're not going to catch in a lefty chat. Nobody will be like, thanks, Benedict Arnold, you turncoat motherfucker. Like, I like some of the right wing slang. I like some of the right wing imagery you guys draw from sometimes. I do think that we should bring up Benedict Arnolds of the world more. But to the other point that I was making earlier, Gavin, isn't it astonishing that a guy who has built the media network, I almost called it an empire, it's not an empire, the media network of the Young Turks, right? The media outlet, he's done very well for himself as a businessman in a certain sense, to just absolutely fail at what is maybe the easiest test in the business, and that's to sell out to the right wing. He may be one of the few individuals that's dumb enough, delusional enough, uncharismatic, and transparent enough to not sell the grift to a bunch of clapping seals. I'm talking about a bunch of baby birds that are just like, they want you to chew up and spit out shit they've already heard and already agree with back into their mouth. And Cenk is failing at that because he's so unlikable. Guys, there's something about him right now in this current stage of pivoting that he cannot sell fucking water in the desert, man. He can't do it. He's not capable of making people see him and buy into the idea of listening to him. He's only a token that can be used by others.
At this point,
right now. And it's embarrassing.
He is a talented commentator, but that's why it sucks to see him at this weird sellout stage in his career where he just wants to sound like a milquetoast centrist Democrat who wants to pander to MAGA instead of actually rally the left-wing troops. It's it's pretty wild. But do you want to get back into this, Zach?
Oh yeah, let's throw this up.
But
Cool.
was
And,
the right
Let's see, we can skip ahead to
yeah, this is the one that I had.
Cool.
wing?
And,
You agree with?
He's about to talk about his. I think he calls them his new rules for the internet or something like that. He wants to, sit down on this guy's show and be like, here's my new rules for how we're gonna, conduct ourselves in this space or something. And you should have seen the chat, the live chat when this was happening. People were like, LOL, what the hell? Like, get this guy out of here. No one wants to follow your dumb rules.
And these idiots said, bow your head to Joe Biden. And Pat, I was on the show. I was on every show. And I said, what are you guys, nuts? His brain has fallen out of his ear. He's shaking hands with invisible people. He thinks his uncle was eaten by cannibals. You guys are lunatics. And I will not agree to being a lunatic for your agenda. So look, to me, like, look, I want to propose this as rules for the internet.
I want to hear it. Go for it.
But it's like,
Thank you so much.
it's so important that both the right wing and left wing agree with this, right? So let me bounce it off you guys. Number one rule: when we disagree, we fight, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. It's America. Okay, we disagree. We got freedom of speech. Let's rumble. Let's brawl. There's nothing wrong with that.
What do you mean rumble and brawl?
I mean,
Oh my God! I think he's talking about terrorism. I don't know. I'm a little sus about this guy. You know what? I've seen pictures, and people have made the case that he might be associated with Hamas. But if he's not for violence, then he wants to stroke us off, and I guess I'll bite my tongue.
rhetorically, politically,
Debating.
not violent.
I'll throw down right now, Jim.
Because as simple as that sounds, that was not popular with the left the last 8 years. We've invited so many people from the left, and we will always invite them, but unfortunately, they don't like to fight as much as the other side.
Hey, we will fly anywhere you want on our own dime, Patrick. You know what? We'll have a great chat. We will represent the Zoomer left, the problematic, blue-haired left. I'll cut my hair. I'll dye my hair. I'll do whatever you want. Dress up in a costume, my guy. I would love to engage with you.
Yeah. Also, like I pointed this out yesterday, but Cenk specifically has always debated right wingers on TYT. He's actually done a better job of that in the past than other left wing shows. He's pretty eager. Historically, he's been pretty eager to debate right wingers. It seems like now he just wants to repackage the same strategy as like something new and novel. But the only difference is that now he wants to do it with kid gloves on. He's like, oh, so I'm going to do the same thing I've always done, but now I'm going to come to the table with kid gloves and I'm going to pretend to be these people's friends. These absolute idiots and ghouls. Like, no, if you're debating some piece of shit right winger, go in there and destroy them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. There's exceptions. Like I understand that Kyle used to be kind of friends with Joe Rogan, so when he went on that show, he would be friendly with Joe because they had a personal relationship. I understand that kind of thing. I'm not dense. I'm not saying you have to go in there like a bull every time and just knock everything down. Of course not. But it's also not a good idea to just go in there and agree with them on pretty much everything and be super milquetoast. And like I said, just put on the kid gloves.
I totally agree. And that's the thing. It's so funny. He acts like they've turned over a new chapter. It's like, no, dude, what you've done is you've actually gone soft. Yeah. You've actually decided that you're going to nuzzle up and go where the food is instead of being a street dog.
To fight. Okay.
Yeah.
What's rule two?
Rule number two of the internet. Afterwards, you must have a beer together. Okay.
Tip O'Neill and Reagan.
Yeah. And so what I mean by that is you don't have.
What? You must have a beer, but only if you're a right wing asshole with a million subscribers. Because that doesn't apply to channels like us. Like when we scrap and fight, he's not like, yeah, let's hash it out and then go out for a beer together. Not that I want to get a beer with Cenk Uygur. Not that I want to get a beer with any of these idiots. I don't want to get a beer with Tim Pool. I don't want to get a beer with Patrick Bet-David. I don't want to get a beer with Anna Kasparian or Cenk Uygur. None of them. That's not what I'm interested in. But again, why does this only apply to right-wing assholes that are super rich and have giant media companies that you can leech off of? Why does it not apply to any of the scrappy left-wing channels that are actually independent and that are actually populist?
Well, what he's doing is he's narrowing the scope of what is acceptable discourse in this country. Typically, what left media is responsible for it is pushing the Overton window left. And what he's doing is he's dragging it back to the center. He's saying what these people represent, you and me, what the actual authentic left, what he would, I swear to God, call you the activist left, the deranged left, whatever the hell he would decide.
He's now saying the max left,
the
quote unquote, to be respectful. That's what he says in this interview. He's like, I'm calling them the max left now.
The max left. There we
I'll
go.
take it.
And I made the position against what you guys would call extreme left or radical left. I'm trying to call them max left now to be respectful, right?
Right. Okay. That's what we represent.
Dude, we got to make a shirt that says max left.
Max left. Maximum leftist. What I think we really have to look at is what Noam Chomsky talked about in Manufacturing Consent, right? Mainstream media, what they did was they defined the range of discourse that was respectable, right? You can either believe this or you could believe that, but there's no opportunity to believe, something totally over here. They're not going to permit that level of discussion. What he's doing right now is he's saying, don't listen to anybody that is to the left of where I am, right? I am the centrist, but I am now representing to me the left. And I'm going to run onto these far right podcasts and say, like me, I am the left winger that agrees with you. And I'm also going to close the door and be like, this is where leftism ends, right? Just, a different face on the Democratic Party. You know what I mean? A guy who wants to crack a beer with you.
To love the other guy, you don't have to agree with him, but we got to go back to being Americans, right? So, okay, we have a fight, then let's go get a beer. So what? Okay, I don't agree with you on healthcare. I don't agree with you on trans issues. And I know some people say, hey, look.
You think immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country. Who cares? You know what? You're building a cross to burn in my neighbor's front yard. I like to play pickleball on the weekends. Come on, we're just Americans.
Is there
also, just to cut in one more time, like, I think most people on the left kind of agree with this mentality when it comes to people they know, IRL, family members, friends. Yeah, you disagree about some stuff, but we're all just fucking powerless individuals with opinions trying to hash things out. That's fair. I don't think anyone really disagrees with that much at this point in time, at this point into the Trump era. I don't know very many people that are like boycotting hanging out with anyone that voted for MAGA and stuff. That seems pretty ridiculous. But I do think it's totally different when you're talking about political commentators. Again, that's not your role, Cenk. No one wants to see you buddy up with a bunch of right-wing millionaires and go drink beer together. Like, no, we want you to go in there and destroy their ideas so we can vicariously enjoy that. That's the point of watching debate. That's the point of watching this space and engaging in this kind of content. It's not to see two rich buddies, agreeing with each other for 2 hours and pretending to push back sometimes and then sipping drinks afterwards. Like, that's not entertaining. We want the friction. The point of debate culture is the disagreement and the friction.
Line that goes too far. Yeah, for some people, there's a line that goes too far. But in general, let's go back to listening to one another. We've been yelling at each other. And by the way, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I think as far as yelling on the internet goes, to your point, yeah, I've done that many, many times. But I try to have a beer afterwards so that we can still be a country together. Okay. And last one is number 3 is when we agree, let's do something really bold and unite. Okay. And if we unite, we will be invincible. Because look, as I said in that tweet,
my fucking airport self-improvement bullshit. If you can conceive and you can believe, then you will achieve. You are the pilot of your own life, and we are going to land at a critical destination for you.
My mortal enemy is the establishment. The one that says, no, the politicians are honest. No, the donor money doesn't affect anyone. This absurdity of CNN and New York Times pretending that the donor money doesn't affect the candidates and it doesn't affect the bills. When they start talking about legislation and we're talking about, hey, can we negotiate?
Then why did you say you would take corporate money during your campaign that we all knew was just a virtue signal and a cry for help?
Drug prices. And you're not talking about big pharma spending billions, if not trillions of dollars in lobbying and donating to the politicians, et cetera. No, it's utter corruption. And we cannot beat that corruption unless we unite. So if if I'm right about the right-wing populists, and I made a bet with one of my co-hosts last night, okay, well, I can tell you about that too. But if I'm right about the right-wing populists,
and we unite on some things that we agree on, I think we're going to be invincible and finally beat the establishment.
So I like that. Number one, if we
Let me tell you why I like this, Jake. Let me tell you exactly why. Because not only have you come here groveling like a dog with an empty food bowl to me, my audience full of Republicans, right? People you've admonished, people you've slandered. You've basically come here and you've admitted defeat. Now I like that. I like it when my enemies come to my house and admit defeat. Okay, now that you've rollen over, I'm prepared to rub you on the belly a little bit. Okay, we'll take you for a walk a little bit later. But for now, let me just go ahead and reveal a little bit to you. I love it when my enemies are totally toothless and defanged, and they're not willing to stand by any single one of their principles. I like that a lot. I'm prepared to welcome you into the fold. Thank you very much, Cenk.
disagree, let's fight, let's debate. 2, afterwards, let's have a glass of, let's have beer together. 3,
a glass.
If we do agree, let's unite and let's celebrate it and let's come across as a united crowd, united group. I like that. Going back to the conversation.
Oh
with Trump.
God. So yeah, thank you for your novel suggestions, Cenk. No one had thought of that. Yeah, maybe if we unite where we agree, we can get something done. Oh, wow. Yeah. And again, we've pointed out a million times, but go back 4 years ago, whenever, what was it, Ro Khanna and Rand Paul teamed up to try to get a bill through to end the American funding of the Saudi-led genocide in Yemen. Donald Trump vetoed it. Guess what? That was the populist left and the populist right working together, and Donald Trump vetoed it. And those were actual powerful people in power working together that actually had a chance of getting something done. And again, Donald Trump did not. He defeated it
100%.
And this guy wants to act like Trump's going to respond to his base, a bunch of clamoring morons online, a bunch of idiots online that are like mad at him or something. Like, oh, you need to cut the Pentagon, and then Trump's going to log into Twitter and see what, Patrick Bet David mad and then reverse the policy. Like, that's really what Cenk thinks is going to happen. No, obviously no one with any intelligence is under the impression that that's likely to occur.
No, I mean, let's look at every single time that Donald Trump has made a promise to his base, right? He said he was going to build a wall. Okay. And then he runs 8 years later, again, talking about how the border's worse than it's ever been. So clearly he didn't address that problem while he was president. Okay. He talks about how, he was going to bring the jobs back to America. Didn't happen at all. In fact, he did a new NAFTA. He just renamed it the U.S. Mexico-Canada agreement. And guess what? Mexico and Canada are in a heated standoff now because he's going to do a bunch of tariffs and it's going to raise the price of domestic goods. Okay. Let's talk about the fact that he said he was going to be anti-war the first time around. He was going to stop the escalations and the regime changes. Well, did you know that in one Trump administration, more drone strikes occurred than the entire 8 years of Barack Obama? So it doesn't sound like he listened to his base at all. He said he was going to cut the budget. Guess what? The deficit was higher than it had ever been when he left office. Okay. Yep. Do we need to go on? Do we need to illustrate to you guys that he's not serious about what he says, that he is going to let the powerful apparatuses behind him, what we call the deep state? Really, it's just the bureaucrats that really run Washington day in and day out. And yes, of course, when you have a new president, it matters because they're allowed to fill those bureaucrats. But do you think that Donald Trump is hand selecting it? No, his donors are. Okay, he's going to put somebody like Linda McMahon in charge because she gave him a fuckload of money. And then she's going to do what all of her rich friends want her to do, which is exploit poor children, make it harder for them to get access to public schools, invest in voucher programs, invest in charter schools, defund public schools, and then point and say, oh my gosh, these public schools are terrible. We have to save these children with rich people. Okay, that's how they're going to apply their logic across the board. They're going to expand offshore drilling. They're going to drill, baby, drill. They're going to do whatever they want.
Yep, 100%. And there's one more clip I want to play for you guys of Cenk and his milquetoast BS commentary from this episode. But before we do that, I once again would like to contrast Cenk's commentary with friend of the show, Kyle Kulinski, Secular Talk, former TYT affiliate, Kyle Kulinski. And as I said here on Twitter, this is what it sounds like when you keep it real. Shout out to Kyle Kulinski for speaking the truth instead of capitulating to power and cuddling up to fascist plutocrats. So let's take a listen to this. And then again, I want to play you guys a clip of Cenk talking about something similar from PBD this morning, and you guys can tell me who sounds more populist.
Elon was tweeting the other day a thread about how horrible Social Security is, right? Guys, stop and think about this. Elon Musk is an immigrant billionaire who gets corporate welfare to the tune of billions of dollars from our government. An immigrant billionaire getting corporate welfare saying, I want to cut your grandma's Social Security. This is insanity. This guy should be fucking deported. Are you kidding me? Come into our country, shake down our government, getting bullshit subsidies that you don't need, so stealing taxpayer money, and then you're going to turn around and say, hey, you know those few programs that help regular people? Get rid of them. Elon.
And holy shit, that's honestly, I love the reclamation of the patriotism there.
Yep.
You know what? Get the fuck out of here. You get the fuck out. All right. Yeah. You rich asshole. You go, you take your emerald dining finances and you fuck off forever. How about them apples? Huh? How about you aren't allowed on this patch of dirt? How about we say, you know what? You want to kick these other people out? You want to kick grandma off of her healthcare? You want to fuck up the way we do things? Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here, you rich asshole. We don't want you. We don't need you. We don't have kings in this country.
Yep. It's another great example of a left-wing commentator, Kyle Klinsky in this case, understanding that sometimes the best way to reach these idiots, these MAGA voters, is to get on their level. It's kind of like the conversation we were having with Benjamin Dixon. You're not gonna reach these MAGA voters by pandering to them. Some of these people, specifically the really religious MAGA voters, the best way to reach them is to explain to them that Trump is the Antichrist, as described in the book of Revelations. He's the beast. MAGA is a satanic cult. You're gonna have a lot more success reaching them with that line than by pandering to them or trying to explain why actually science is superior to their archaic religious beliefs, right? In the same way, what I love about Kyle's argument is that, he's using that anti-immigrant logic against them. He said, you want to talk about immigrants? You want to talk about welfare queens? Let's take a look at Elon Musk. You want to talk about deporting people? Well, I got a candidate. I got a candidate for deportation right the fuck here. I think it's beautiful. But like I said, let's take a look at Cenk, because this was his message on a similar topic, and it's pretty mealy-mouthed. I'll put it that way. Not that there isn't some facts in here. Cenk obviously peppers some facts in, but I mean, just compare it to the fire and fury that we saw from Kyle and the unabashed truth to power that we saw from Secular Talk.
Yeah, who's looking for a pat on the head from the establishment and who doesn't give a fuck?
So, look, on the one hand, mainstream media digs up stuff for either character assassinations or get people to fight, etc. On the other hand, I get it. It's they're going to work together, and it turns out he'd said these bad things about him. It's newsworthy, right? So my take on it is a little bit different. So first of all, one thing I'll give Trump credit on is he's pretty good at letting bygones be bygones, right? His vice president called him Hitler, and he let it go, and he picked him as vice president, right?
What about his other vice president? Has anyone checked in on Mike Pence lately?
So he let it go with Bobby Kennedy, and so now he's probably going to make these, and I'm sure that these guys are already past it, etc. And by the way, maybe we shouldn't cancel people forever. Maybe sometimes you thought this, and now you think that. And sometimes it's genuine, sometimes it's bullshit. I get it, right? But sometimes, guys, it is genuine, right? And even so, look. Well, let me make the counterpoint, right? So I get it. He probably. The other thing I wanted to say is that maybe they agree in part. Like, it's like, do Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have to agree on every single thing? No. Right? Like, for example, with Elon and me. So this is the second thing. So apparently.
So for me and my boy Elon, so my really good friend, so me and this guy Elon, my brother and my main homie Elon, so when we're just spitballing, we're riding it out, we're vibing on the X, and I'm picking his brain, he's picking my brain, because he's my friend Elon, this richest man in the world, this oligarch plutocrat, he's just vibing with me and I'm vibing with him. He maybe disagree with me, you know what I'm saying? But as long as he likes me, as long as I'm his friend, I think that might be cool.
We may or may not agree on the Pentagon, whether it's cutting it or making sure the generals don't have a conflict of interest. Great, wonderful. Let's take the agreement. But that doesn't mean I'm letting my guard down. Look.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you are letting your guard down. And what is your message, Cenk? Like, what even is your message? You want to call yourself a populist? You want to call yourself the real left? But all I hear is mealy-mouthed, centrist garbage. It's not like, it would be more entertaining and honestly more forgivable if he just did become a right-wing commentator at this point. Like, just straight up go for it, Because what is with this? Like, I'm halfway off the cliff. I'm going to speak outside of both sides of my mouth. It's just boring. Like I said, that's the worst offense. This is almost borderline incoherent. And worst of all, it's just very tedious to listen to. There's no real ideological thrust.
100%. And it looks like Cenk is continuing his like fucking tour of shame. He got into a debate with Jordan Ewell, potentially over excessive force. People are telling us haven't had a chance to tune into this. So maybe a little bit later in the live stream, we'll plow into that too. But guys, what he's essentially doing is ruining his fucking media platform right now. He may be able to recover and build a new one, but the Young Turks will never again be the home of progressives. The only home of progressives you guys are going to get is the Casa del Vanguard. So go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. And do you know what, Gavin? Do you know what? We have a little bit of special news. Silly and Billy have a secret stash now. Shout out to Cenk Uygur for giving us the inspiration. We've got a whole new run of Vanguard shirts. We've got unlimited supply, and we've got the Silly and Billy shirts as well. Get one now to give Cenk an ulcer. Super fresh, very clean. We also have them in sweatshirts just in time for the holidays. And we are teaming up with Matt from the Letter Hack right now to do some very fun exclusive merch drops before the holidays, inspired by potentially the patron saint of the Vanguard. Need we say more to bring you some Yuletide cheer?
Yep, super excited to release those, everyone. Hit up the link, put that in the description if you guys want to hit that up. Got a lot of cool designs over there. A great Christmas gift if you want to get yourself something nice, or a fellow Vanguardian in your life. But Zach, there's one last clip that we have to play real quick from the PBD. This one's more just funny. I couldn't resist cutting this into a clip because, again, these are the people that Cenk is going to unite with to take down the establishment. This is the quality of minds that we're going to be working with in the coming years. So prepare yourself.
White men, basically any man. I'll tell you a quick story. A guy tells me, he goes, "So you voted for Biden?" I was like, "Yeah, I actually did." "And you voted for Hillary?" "Yeah, I did." "So you're going to vote for Kamala?" I go, No, I'm on the Trump train." He goes, "Straight up?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, so you're not gay?" I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? He goes, "Because the Democrats, they're just gays. They're just a gay party now. As a straight man, how do you vote for them?" And I looked at him and I go, "You're actually absolutely right. So you're a straight guy.
LOL. Man, it's just like, I think if you're going to, it's just like, how could you be a straight man in this country and vote for your own oppression? You know what I mean? The war on white men, everybody's hating the white man. Yeah, Gavin and I, we talk about it. We get off the air, we have a good cry. We hold each other close because it's the world against us, man. I walk outside, bullets flying. I don't know, blue-haired leftists, Black Lives Matter careening down the streets, the feminists, PETA. It's everywhere. It's a living nightmare. I'm not allowed to even just exit my home and have a smoke anymore without anybody crawling up my ass and telling me about a microaggression I've committed. That's why I had to leave the left too.
Yeah. And I think, Isaac, you're kind of right. In many ways, I do feel like we're back in the 2000s, back in the Bush era, which is very ironic because Cenk wants to talk about how this isn't the Republican Party of your grandfather, or this isn't the Republican Party of your dad or your older brother. This is a whole new base of populists. And it's like, no, dude, that clip I just showed you came after 40 minutes of Cenk trying to like break bread with these idiots or whatever, try to unite against the establishment. And then what does it all come around to in the end? Culture war garbage. That's all they care about. That's all that ultimately is going to motivate their movement. Now, obviously, that's not the case with every right-winger IRL. There are some real populist right-wingers, libertarian types out there. I've met them. I've talked to them. I think we can unite with those people. I'm not totally against everything that Cenk is saying in that regard. Like I said, I know some libertarians and some right-leaning folks in my own life who are definitely anti-establishment. So I'm not denying that. But these fools, these rich assholes, these idiots, all they want to do is lick the boot. All they want to do is hang out with people that are in power because they want to be part of the club. They're not interested in challenging the corporate elite or the plutocracy or the oligarchs like Elon Musk. Those people are the establishment, and you have to resist them. You have to fight them. You have to fight to win.